Good morning. So I had recently put a new distributor in this 1965 Bug after it had caught on fire.
Well, man.
And driving it around town, just testing it out, it ran fine for a while, and then twice on the same weekend after getting a little ways from home, it just died and had to get it towed home, which is why I'm still glad I got that tow bar. Got to use it twice within 48 hours. So what I want to do is go through what were the symptoms I had before I broke down, what was the troubleshooting I did, what was the fix, and did that fix it. So let's start with what were the symptoms I had that had me abandoned on the side of the road. So the symptom is pretty quick and easy to explain. Driving along, put in the new distributor, cruising, it's running great, get a few miles from home, and the starts spitting around a little bit, and then it just dies completely. Nothing, no firing, no coughing, just fully dead. Cranked it, wouldn't start, wouldn't fire, wouldn't even hiccup. So looked in the engine compartment, and maybe it was me. I mean, of course it was me. I put the distributor back in, so I thought maybe the timing was off. So grabbed the distributor and gave it just a little bit of a twist to see if it had lost its position, and it felt like it moved a little too easy. So I thought, all right, I guess I forgot to tighten the distributor completely once I had set the timing. So I brought it back home and then started the troubleshooting. And ironically, the exact same thing happened the next day. So let's go over what the troubleshooting was, because day one or day two, same thing. Driving along, go a few miles, stops and sputter. And this time I hunted for the cause a little bit better, and I'm pretty sure I found the cause. So let's go over troubleshooting. So the first time I got it home, I decided to check the timing. As I mentioned, I thought I had maybe got the distributor way off. So hooking up the timing light, checking the direction, and hooking it up to the wire on plug 1, and then adding your positive to the alternator, and then grounding out the ground strap. Now the car runs fine now, so I'm going to go ahead and start it and show you what a timing light should look like when it's running normally. So with the car running, you should be able to see the strobing of the timing light, which is when the plug 1 fires, so that you can see what is the timing versus the marks on the pulley. You'll notice it looks like the strobe is a little inconsistent, but that's really just because the video camera and the strobing, the timing is a little funky between them, so you don't actually capture every fast strobe, but it was running fine. Now the car wasn't running fine when I was doing this test the first time, so that was where my purchase of the Zalox remote start came in really handy, because then I could just push the button here to crank the engine and then check the timing, and without having to run up to the front and have somebody turn the key or somehow figure out a way to do it myself. So this is really handy. I recommend one of these. The catch was, when I was pushing and cranking the engine the first night, the strobe was not coming on at all. So considering the newest piece of the equation here was the new distributor, I figured I better take a look inside here. So doing kind of the static timing method, where you measure 12 volts and when it closes the points and such, I was able to take a look and see what was going on. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm talking about. So the first thing we need to do is line up the rotor so that it's pointing at the little notch in the distributor, so that way we can verify that we're pointing at cylinder 1 instead of cylinder 3. So if we take a look here, it was pointing closer to cylinder 3 than cylinder 1. So we got to rotate the engine around a little bit, get it near top dead center for cylinder number 1. So just putting the rotor on here, we can see that it's pointing towards that notch in the distributor now, while the pulley is rotated so that its notch lines up with the case. So next we get out our voltmeter, set it to max 20 volts, so we should be able to measure 12-ish volts. The ignition is currently set to the on position so that we get 12 volts at the coil, and depending on where the distributor is lined up at the moment, we'll either get 12 volts on the other side of the coil, or we'll get near 0 volts if the points are grounding out the coil. All the time measuring here with the ignition on, we should have 12 volts. Well, 12-ish. The other side of the coil here, this green wire, goes from 12 volts when the points are open to 0-ish volts when the points are closed, and that's just the way the coil works to send spark to your spark plugs. So at the moment it shows near 0 volts, which means the points are closed, which means this side of the coil is being grounded out, which is fine. So zooming in here, it's a pretty simple little circuit. You got 12 volts coming in one side from the coil that may or may not be grounded. When this little lobe moves and pushes the arm away from the contact point, then you get a gap or you get grounding to ground out the coil. So that's all that's really happening. As this shaft rotates around, the little arm gets pushed away from the contact point so that your 12 volts is either open or it's connected to ground. Currently we're measuring 12 volts, which means there is a gap. It's not being grounded. But then as you rotate the engine, which rotates the shaft, eventually the points close, which then grounds out the 12 volt side of the coil on the other side, and then you get near 0. So that's working properly. And if I measure here at the other end of this single wire, it should also be the same. It's just a piece of wire that's connecting the incoming green wire where it comes to the side of the distributor and then going over to the points. So just a piece of wire. There should be no change in voltage from one end of it to the other. That's where the key to this whole problem is going to lie. So the first day after moving the wires around and such, everything was working fine. The next day it broke down. Here's where it got very specific. This side of the wire would measure 12 volts. This other side of that same piece of wire would measure 0 volts. That actually is a problem. And this is an indication that there's something between the connectors and the wire that is failing. So it's time to do a little reinforcement with a soldering iron. So taking the distributor out of the car, I want to measure continuity here on this wire again. So this is just connecting the green incoming to the points. And you'll notice here that it actually shows as being continuous, but I knew that was not the case because of the way I had measured it when it was in the car. So there's some sort of intermittent connection between the wire and the terminals, which is the worst kind of problem. Intermittent electrical problems are terrible. So what I decided to do was go ahead and take the points out so I could get to that wire and just really beef up the connection with a soldering iron. The points are held in with a single Phillips screw here, and this is also how you adjust that gap distance, because that is an important part of setting your point gap in the calibration of the distributor. So it's just one screw, just got to pull that out and then pull out the points, and then this is terminal here, you can just pop that out, and this is what we need to reinforce. So as you can see here, the crimp is on mostly wire, and there's just a little bit on one side connected, and same over here. You know, maybe there's just not a very good tinning of the wire that's coming out of there, but we're going to take care of that. We're going to make a much better connection once I'm done with this. So we want to remove some of this extra insulation here around the wire, just so that we have more exposed wire to make better contact with the terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off as much as I can here and not go beyond the first crimp there, but just dig out and cut out as much of this plastic as I can, and then also gouge out the end of the terminal so that I can get to the bare wires, just so that we have full clean connection and we can just go crazy with the soldering iron. Alright, once we have all the insulation cut away, we can go ahead and get the wires set back in there, kind of group it as much as we can back against the terminal so that we can begin getting it ready to solder it all back in there. So let's go ahead and get the soldering iron fired up. Look how much better that is for electron flow. So now at the other end of the wire, we have a similar situation. Just a little bit has been stripped and crimped. So there must be some sort of intermittence in there. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pry it out, cut off as much of the insulation as we can, and then give another big soldering on this side. And again, look at all this contact now, metal to metal. Once the soldering's all done, we can go ahead and put our points back in the distributor. Then you just got to get it roughly in place here, and then go ahead and get your Phillips screw and pop that back in. And before we're done, technically, we need to go ahead and gap our points here. So we want to use a 0.016 millimeter feeler gauge. Notice here how the gap opens and closes. So you want to be on the highest part of the lobe there and get your max distance there. And then it's a matter of using the feeler gauge and setting the gap. If you need it either bigger or smaller gap size, you just need to loosen that Phillips screw and then adjust the little assembly there so that you get the proper gap. So that takes a little back and forth, but we eventually got it to 16 exactly. And now we can put the distributor back in the car. So you just want to make sure it lines up properly with down where the shaft goes. You'll be able to see a little spot where it's supposed to line up. And then you want to find the right little spot to make sure it drops in place. So you can see the distributor is moving, but the shaft in the middle is not, which is proper. And when we move the pulley, we would see the shaft moving a little bit and the distributor not moving. Now we can plug the green wire back into the coil. Make sure you put it on the proper side. And then we can start looking to do a static timing on our distributor position. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set up the voltmeter here. And we got the positive wire of the voltmeter going to the green lead, then which is our incoming to the distributor. And then we're just going to use an alligator clip, makes it much easier. You don't see it, it's off screen, so it's nowhere near metal, so I don't ground it out. And then for the negative lead, we're just going to go ahead and also attach an alligator clip to a little ground point here and do our measuring here so we can have both hands free. So just setting this up as well. Currently, we get 0 volts, which means the points are closed, which means it's grounding out the coil. And then as you rotate the distributor until you find that sweet spot where the points then open, then you see 12 volts. So right now I have my pulley set around top dead center more or less. I'll set it later with the timing gun, but I'm trying to find that spot where it switches between open and close. Listen closely for the arcing. There you go. So once you have your position here, you can go ahead and tighten up that 10 millimeter nut on the timing for the distributor so it clamps and doesn't move. Now this is the thing I wasn't sure if I did the very first time I put this in, but I think in hindsight I actually did do it fine. It's just this intermittent electrical issue made it a pain to chase down. So we have a temporary spot here. I left it a little bit turnable so that we can then start the engine and figure out what the actual timing is and be able to fine tune it to the timing that we want. So we're going to go ahead and get the cap back on, go ahead and start up the car, and then do a timing check and set it for roughly around, I've heard people say, 30 degrees at 3,000 RPM. somewhere around there. So, you know, this is an old car and it's not a very strong engine anyway, and it's all a little fuzzy. So as long as it runs good when you're driving around, it's fine. I mean, I'm going to aim for as ideal as I can, but there's a lot of variables here. I just need to make sure the distributor's working. And after doing all this, I've been driving it around a while, and it does seem to be working fine. So, but we're just going to go ahead and get everything set up here for a little timing check. So it's a little tough to see here just because, again, the strobing and such, and you can't see my RPMs. But what I found is when I got to around 3,000 RPM, I couldn't quite get to 30 degrees because you can see that little condenser is hitting the fuel pump. So part of the reason is because the position of the distributor shaft looks like whoever assembled the engine kind of made it so, you know, that first cylinder is kind of pointing back more than they usually do, which is no big deal. It just means the position is not what it normally is. But what that means is with my condenser hitting the fuel pump, the final thing I'm going to do is go ahead and relocate that condenser to the other side of the little vacuum pump. As you can see here, I took it off one side, put it on the other. I just had to drill a little hole so that it would sit lower like it does on the other side. But now that I've done that, I can go ahead and time the engine to the exact amount I want and then start driving it around, and I think we are fixed.